Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a couple of cards that have a rainbow of colors, but only using 3 colors. And I have done this with many different brands in many different ways over the years. Sky's the limit. But this time I am using some of my Simon Says Stamp Pawsitively Saturated ReInkers. You can also do this like smushing ink pads. I've used distress ReInkers. You can use watercolors, like anything, really. You just need kind of the main trio of colors, which is like a pink, fuchsia type color, blue, and yellow. And you can get an entire rainbow with those. So I will show how I did it. I did some stenciling, a ton of splatter, of course, and some die cutting and fun things. So I'll show you guys how I did it. Below the video, I will have links to everything I use. So if you just expand the description box, I'll have a supply list with all of the links to everything that I used in this video. As always, my links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I get a little kickback at no extra cost to you. And that's what helps pay the bills and keeps the lights on and all the things. And then, yeah, just keep watching and I will show you guys how I made these cards. So I started off with a couple of pieces of distress watercolor paper. Any watercolor paper will work for this. And I've got some white embossing paste. This is Altenew's white embossing paste. And the Simon Says Stamp dash and dot stencil. Pretty much any sort of geometric type stencil will work for this. Well, any stencil, really. I went with this because it's new. It was sitting here. And I do love me a geometric background because it goes with everything. You know, this is just going to give some pattern. So I applied the paste over the stencil onto the watercolor paper. Purposely put the stencil, you know, crooked. Did not apply the paste edge to edge because you don't need to. I get asked that sometimes, like, why did you do this? Why did you do things on an angle, that sort of thing. Honestly, just to mix it up. Things don't need to be straight. Things don't need to be, again, perfection is overrated. And yeah, when you're intentionally crooked, intentionally messy, sometimes it makes for some fun things. So I let the paste mostly dry. It's not completely dry, but I wasn't worried about it. And then I've got just a little palette here and my ReInkers. Now, I actually applied, put more ReInker on this palette than I needed. I could have done probably 6+ backgrounds with what I put on here. I was hesitating with that first one because I was like, oh, a couple drops will do. And I was like, no, you better add more. Not the end of the world. It's when it gets spread out with water, it looks like a ton. It's not that much. Anyway, water. Important. Very important. Especially when you are coloring with ReInkers. ReInkers are not watercolors. They're not meant to be watercolors. You can use them as watercolor, as I show, but that's not what they're formulated for. So you need water when working with these, because if you just paint straight ReInker onto your cardstock, the additives that are put into ReInkers, because they're meant for an ink pad, you know, and your ink pads are formulated so that they don't just dry out real quick. So if you just paint with straight up ReInker, it might never dry, is basically what I'm saying. So you need water. So you also want water to get it to move and to, you know, mix colors and all the fun things. So the 3 colors specifically that I used was sunshine or sunbeam. Yeah, sunbeam, peony, and surf. And I'll have links to all the things like I always do. And I started with yellow, not because of what I normally do. Like I always talk to you guys when I'm doing rainbow stuff. I'm like, I always start with yellow because I don't want to contaminate my tools. That wasn't why I did it this time. I just started with yellow because it is my center color and the other 2 colors are mixing into it. So started with yellow. And then when I add the pink overlapping with the yellow makes orange. And then when I overlapped the blue overlapping with yellow makes green. And then I put pink in that lower corner there because blue and pink make purple. So I just kind of mucked around. I started mixing it together just right directly on my palette. And then on the second one, I'm doing the exact same thing with the exact same colors, but you get just a different result. That's another reason why I like doing more than one when I'm able to, like when I have the time or when I make the time. Because it's fun using literally the exact same products, regardless of what I'm doing, but using the exact same things and in the exact same way, exact same method, etc. And no matter what, it's still different. And that's just, to me, that's fun. So this time I kind of applied the color, like mixing it more on my palette. So it does just give a slightly different look versus kind of mixing them on the paper. So experiment, have fun with it, you know, and like I said in the intro, you can use watercolors to do this. You can smush your ink pads. You'll get a much more vibrant result using ReInkers because it's concentrated, but you can smush ink pads and do this if they're water reactive. And yeah, have fun with it. It's just fun. It's fun seeing the colors, you know, mix and blend and creating new colors. So I let these backgrounds dry and then I put them in my splat box and I'm going to add a ton of splatter because I can. So I'm going to start with some white gouache. Same thing. Just stuck this onto my little palette and then I'm going to water this down so that I get it into a nice splatterable consistency. And for this, I'm using my little fan brush, my go-to splatter brush. And then I decided to add even more gouache because you can't tell like on camera, but in real life, I had watered it down a little more than I wanted it to be. So just added a little bit more white gouache. These tubes are enormous, so they're going to last me forever anyway. So added white splatter, cleaned off my brush, and then I'm going to add black splatter. So I'm going to put some little black gouache onto my palette. Water this down a bit. The black splatter I'm not adding as much of. I'm being a little more conservative with this. I just wanted a bit. I don't know. There's something about black splatter. I really like it. So added a bit of that to these backgrounds. And then I'm going to add gold. So I've got my Gansai Tambi Starry colors, and I'd already added water to the one I planned on using. That was sitting while I was doing this black and white splatter. So then it just mixes up quick and easy. So cleaned off my brush, especially with that black gouache. Oh, that stuff is pigmented. Like super pigmented. So cleaned off my brush, and then I've got my gold Gansai Tambi here. And same thing, swirled my brush in it, and then this one I went in pretty heavy-handed because it's gold. Who doesn't like gold, honestly? So splattered that all over the backgrounds, and then I let these dry completely. And while I was letting them dry off camera, I was doing like all my die cutting, which I'll show in a minute. So for my card bases, these are going to be top folding white A2 note cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I just pulled out one of my ultra sticky grip mats, stuck that on my work surface, stuck the card base to it, and then put my very well used piece of Post-it tape that's just right at the score line, so I don't end up getting like ink smears or whatever past the score line of the inside of the card. And then I place the same stencil again onto the card base, and I'm using now just the ink pads in the exact same colors, so Sunbeam, Peony, and Surf, and blending brushes. This time specifically starting with yellow because I don't like getting other colors into my yellow tools because it's a pain in the butt. You generally end up having to like clean your tools, and part of it is OCD. I don't like seeing other colors touching my yellow. But with other colors, like my pink brush picking up some of the yellow ink, one, it makes the orange, that's what I need. But also the pink is more overpowering, so you don't see yellow on my pink brush and any of the other colors, but yellow being the lightest color. That's the explanation of why I do what I do. Anyway, I'm doing the exact same thing, but this time with ink blending, and I'm using a much lighter hand. And you can see I keep tapping the ink off onto my work surface because I don't want to go in like full strength with these inks because this is the inside of the card. So and these colors are pretty vibrant. And so I just want it to be softer so I can easily write over that. So I did the exact same blend, and I did that on the second card base. And then I ended up adhering the card fronts directly to the card base. I was going to cut them down, pop them up with foam tape like I always do. But I really didn't want to cut into these backgrounds. I liked that rough edge I created with painting on those watercolors, and I didn't want to lose that. So I left it and just adhered them as is to the card bases. And then for my sentiment, I am using the Thanks word die and outline. This comes with the A7 nesting frames die set that was just released recently from Simon Says Stamp. In their previous release, they had A2 frames and it had a hello word and outline, which I love. And so with this release, this one came with the thanks die, which perfection, love it. And then, yeah, the A7 frames, which I didn't use any of the frames, but you could also use them on A2 cards. Again, things don't need to be the exact, shape, nested perfectly, etc. I did think about using a couple of the frames on this, but instead I just went with the words, and then I'm going to use the butterflies, which I'll get to in a second. So I die cut scraps of heavyweight white cardstock with the thanks word, stacked them together as is tradition with my craft tacky glue, just to give it dimension. And then the outline I die cut from black cardstock, adhered it all together, set those aside. My butterflies are the newer Whirl butterfly wafer die. As of doing this voiceover, I'm doing the voiceover after I filmed and everything and made this video. I went live recently and used these in a different way. And then I promised in the live that I would get this video up, and that's what I'm doing. So I die cut more white cardstock with the butterfly wafer dies, and I also die cut Simon's matte gold cardstock with those wafer dies, and the detail on metallic cardstock with these wafer dies, I'm gonna have to pull out because there's several in this kind of series. Like you can see the Dragonfly there. I just used the body. I'll get to that in a sec. But there's several that Simon Says Stamp has released over the last year or so, just different ones, and I'm gonna have to pull them all out, so I can keep them together, but also I was like, ooh, I need to start die cutting metallic cardstocks with these wafer dies because the detail, it's so beautiful. Anywho, I used the Whirl Dragonfly, which I've used in a few videos now, just for the body because I wanted to use that. You could also, if you don't have this wafer die or don't want to get it or whatever, but you want to add something to the centers of the butterflies, as a body, you could also add a little bit of bling, a little rhinestone or two. That would look really cute, I think. And yeah, I had the Dragonfly wafer die, and I was like, it's perfect. So I die cut scraps of black cardstock with that. I layered 2 of the butterflies together for the large one, and then just the smaller white one, and that's why I trimmed down the body. It just looked better in my opinion for the smaller butterflies. And then on the inside of the cards, I adhered just the remaining smaller gold butterfly die. I didn't add a body to that one because, again, it's the inside of the card, and I just didn't feel like die cutting anymore. So I got everything adhered into place. And then as my final little bit of embellishment, I'm using some Stay Gold sequins from Simon Says Stamp just to tie it all together. So I kind of sprinkled those around the sentiment and the butterflies. And then I'm going to adhere these into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue. And that finishes off both of these cards. So I had so much fun just mucking around with these inks. Look at all the color when I only use 3, it's fun. It's kind of magical, So I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said in the intro, I will have links to all the things in the description box below the video for anyone who is interested. As always, thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting, letting them robot overlords know you guys like what you see. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.